Every author has a story, but mine began not with a plot twist but with the kind of betrayal that leaves a mark on your soul. I remember the day clearly. It was a dreary Wednesday, the kind that feels like a blanket over your heart. I had just finished editing my manuscript for what I thought would be my big break, my first novel. I was on the verge of excitement, but little did I know my world was about to unravel in the most unexpected way. I came home early that day, eager to share the news about my manuscript submission, but as I stepped through the door, the muffled sound of laughter drew my attention to the living room. The moment I walked in, I froze. There was my wife, Emily, intertwined with another man, their laughter cutting through the silence like a jagged knife. The betrayal wasn't just in the act, it was in the familiarity of their connection, the ease with which they shared a moment that was meant to be ours. My heart raced, and a swell of rage mixed with an indescribable sadness washed over me. I stood there, watching them, feeling invisible. After what felt like an eternity, Emily caught my eye, and the joy drained from her face. "Jack, I can explain," she stammered, her eyes wide with panic. "Can you?" I replied, my voice barely a whisper. I turned and walked out, my mind racing, my heart shattering. That night I couldn't sleep. My thoughts spiraled as I replayed the scene over and over in my mind. How could she do this? Was our entire life together a lie? As the hours dragged on, a seed of an idea took root in my mind. What if I channeled this pain into my writing? What if I told my story not just as a victim, but as an artist? And thus, Shadows on the Page was born. I poured my heart into that novel, weaving a narrative that blurred the lines between reality and fiction. The protagonist, an author named Alex, discovers his wife, Lila, in an affair that is shockingly similar to my own. I exaggerated scenarios, creating characters that mirrored our friends and family, crafting dialogues that felt painfully familiar. I wanted to explore the depths of betrayal, the complexities of love, and the absurdity of life. Each chapter was a cathartic release, allowing me to confront my emotions in a way that felt both painful and liberating. As I wrote, I found solace in my creativity. I transformed my heartbreak into art, exaggerating and embellishing events to highlight the absurdity of betrayal. Alex became a caricature of my pain, navigating a world filled with deceit, while Lila's character embodied all the hurt and confusion I felt toward Emily. I wrote furiously, often late into the night, fueled by anger and sorrow. My friends and family were my first readers, and their reactions were encouraging. They laughed at the humorous bits and gasped at the darker moments. When I finished the manuscript, I felt a sense of accomplishment, a bittersweet victory over my heartbreak. I submitted the novel to several publishers, and after weeks of anxious waiting, I received a call from a literary agent who loved the manuscript and wanted to represent me. "This is going to be a bestseller," she said with a confidence that ignited a spark of hope within me. Months passed, and my novel hit the shelves. I held my breath as I watched it climb the charts. It wasn't long before Shadows on the Page became a sensation. Book clubs discussed it fervently, readers reached out to me, sharing their own stories of betrayal and heartbreak. I felt a sense of camaraderie with those who resonated with Alex's pain. It was cathartic, empowering, and intoxicating. But with success came the inevitable media attention. I started receiving invitations to talk shows and interviews. During one such appearance, I spoke candidly about the inspiration behind my book. I hinted at the betrayal that fueled my writing, though I danced around the details. My heart raced when I caught the look on the host's face. "So you're saying this story is based on real-life experiences?" he pressed. I nodded, feeling a mix of pride and apprehension. Little did I know, Emily was watching from the comfort of our home, her expression shifting from pride to horror as the revelations unfolded. As my fame grew, so did the whispers. Emily was no longer just my wife, she was now the subject of public scrutiny. She started receiving messages from friends, family, and even strangers. "Is this about you?" they asked. The pressure mounted, and I knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came crashing down. One evening, I returned home from a book signing, basking in the glow of the day's success, but when I entered, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Emily stood in the living room, her arms crossed, her face pale. "Jack," she began, her voice trembling, "we need to talk." "About what?" "Your affair," I shot back, the sting of betrayal still fresh. "This has gone too far. People are saying things. They think I'm a monster," she exclaimed, her voice rising in desperation. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "You are a monster, Emily. You made a choice, and now the world knows it." "I never meant for it to get this far," she pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. "You turned our life into a spectacle." I took a step back, feeling the anger bubbling up inside me. "You did that when you chose to betray me. I'm just sharing the truth." Our confrontation escalated, emotions running high as accusations flew between us. The pain and betrayal became palpable, filling every corner of our once happy home. She begged me to consider her feelings, but how could I? The very foundation of our life had crumbled beneath me, and I had poured that pain into my art, finally reclaiming my narrative. The climax of our conflict came during a book signing event a few weeks later. I stood at the front of a bustling bookstore, surrounded by eager fans, signing copies of my novel. I could see the excitement in their eyes, but my heart was heavy, knowing Emily would be in attendance. As I wrapped up the last of the signings, I noticed her at the back of the room, her face flushed and tense. The air crackled with anticipation as the crowd settled. I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. I had to address the elephant in the room. "Thank you all for being here today," I began, looking out at the sea of faces. "This book is not just a story, it's a reflection of my journey through betrayal and healing." Emily stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Jack, please," she shouted, but the crowd hushed, all eyes on her. "This is my truth," I continued, my voice stronger, "and if it resonates with you, then perhaps it's a truth worth sharing." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the crowd. Emily's face contorted in anger, and she shouted, "You think this is fair? You've made a mockery of our lives." I could see the hurt in her eyes, but I also felt a sense of empowerment. "You made your choices, Emily. I merely reflected them back to the world." The tension in the room thickened, and I could feel the weight of their gazes. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment to reclaim my narrative, to turn the page on our shared story. The fallout from that signing was swift and brutal. The media had a field day, splashing headlines about the author and the unfaithful wife. Emily became a pariah in our social circles, and I was thrust into the limelight, relishing the success of my novel while grappling with the emotional toll it took on both of us. In the months that followed, Emily and I drifted further apart. I found solace in my writing, crafting new stories that were less about heartbreak and more about healing. Emily, on the other hand, struggled with the consequences of her actions. Friends distanced themselves, and whispers followed her like shadows. Despite our emotional chasm, there were moments of vulnerability when we'd both share a quiet laugh about the absurdity of our situation. But those moments were fleeting, and the scars of betrayal lingered. As I continued to write, I realized that my journey was not just about revenge or public humiliation, it was about finding my voice in a world that had tried to silence me. Shadows on the page became a testament to resilience, a story of rebirth from the ashes of heartbreak. Eventually, Emily and I found a tentative truce. We learned to coexist, no longer bound by the ties of love, but by the shared experience of our past. I focused on my career, publishing new works that celebrated the beauty of second chances. Emily, in turn, sought redemption, volunteering and rebuilding her life away from the shadows of betrayal. Years later, as I sat in my study, surrounded by books that chronicled my journey, I reflected on the story that had begun in heartbreak. Shadows on the Page had become more than just a novel, it was a cathartic release, a way to reclaim my narrative and share my truth with the world. I had learned that love and betrayal are not simply black and white, they exist in shades of grey, complex and intricate. In the end, my story became a mirror reflecting not only my pain but also my growth, reminding me that even in the darkest moments, there is always a path toward healing and redemption.